Welcome to the Amber Nectar podcast, discussing the things we think about Hull City AFC.
Welcome along to the Amber Nectar podcast. Good to see you if you're watching us live on Periscope or afterwards on the Amber Nectar YouTube page, and good to know you there if you've decided to download us for your favourite podcast app and listen to us in audio-only form. Excitingly, we will know during the course of this podcast who Hull City are going to get in the FA Cup third round. So we look forward to announcing that it's probably going to be Wigan away, or worse still, Wigan at home. It usually is, isn't it? So when the FA Cup draw's made, about 25 minutes from the time it is now that I'm speaking to you, then we will obviously immediately talk about that draw. However, we have a very pleasant 25 minutes ahead, Les, to talk about a really brilliant Hull City performance and victory.
Indeed. I can even tear my gaze away from that Northern Irish woman on the one show.
She's Welsh, but apart from that...
Was she Welsh?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. It was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think could anybody really have anticipated that? Could any of us have anticipated City being so potent going forward? I mean, we were quite pleased with the Norwich 0-0 last week, but you can't exactly say it was a game we sort of threatened a lot. And I know QPR aren't quite Norwich City, the league tables sort of hint at that, but for City to go away and sort of go for it was pretty damned impressive. And what I really liked was City looks remarkably organised, structured, and was able to pass the ball about in a way of a team that looks like they fully understand each other. There was sort of passes being made where there was a fair confidence there was going to be a player there, as if it had been worked on in training, and that's great because City are always great defensively. We weren't particularly great defensively in this game. We sort of rode out our luck at times, but our best defence to that was to sort of keep the ball, and I thought when City did that and they kept the ball, they did one of either two things: they either passed the ball neatly about and then slowly created an attack, or they gave the ball to Bowen and he just ran straight for goal, and either worked and sort of helped us out defensively.
With QPR scoring in the very last minute, Andy, there was a brief couple of minutes or so, I suppose, where we feared it's going to end up like Birmingham, where we look like we're going to win for Birmingham. Obviously, we looked like we were going to win for the whole of the second half and then didn't. With this one, we looked like we were going to win for the whole game, but mercifully this time we actually did. And it says a lot for City, doesn't it, that they proved in that game, 90 minutes at Loftus Road, they proved they could entertain, they proved they could hold a lead, and they proved they could win against a side that's been in reasonable form, if not necessarily sparkling form in the Championship.
Yeah, that's right. QPR were in good form. You would imagine they're a good deal better than City as a general rule, and the fact that we did that to them is really impressive. You can't possibly withhold any praise from City for what they did, because you can be challenged and say they conceded 2, but they scored 3, and not only did they pinch those 3 goals, we always looked like we were going to score more. We broke really well, and I agree with what you said, Les. They looked like a purpose to what we were doing, and we've looked shapeless and flabby in terms of our attacking play sometimes this season. But I just got a feeling that there was a sharpness to it all, and as though they had an idea of how they were going to hurt an opponent, and that's not something we've seen too often, where City have looked really laboured in what they're trying to do, and to see us attack so well, so excitingly away to a team with playoff hopes is maximum praise to City. I was thrilled by it.
It's also, I read a couple of match reports where the opinion locally in that area of West London was that QPR didn't take City seriously enough. Now that's of course QPR's fault entirely, but it is the sort of thing that if it's going to happen, City have got to exploit, and that hasn't happened all the time this season, where a team hasn't had to play very, very well or take City especially seriously in order to still gain 1 and almost certainly 3 points. But on this occasion, City exploited any level of complacency that QPR might have shown.
Oh, absolutely. They showed the nefarious exploitivity of an oil company in the Antarctic. We're quite okay with piling on Adkins when he makes a mistake, and he got piled on after the Forest game. But equally, if we're going to have a pretense of being fair-minded, we have to sort of even it up with the two things. Two very different opponents in Norwich and in QPR. But one, it's impressive that we didn't concede against, and the other, it's impressive that we scored 3 goals. And you know, we said about the Forest game that he got it wrong because he played 2 up front. And despite the fact that a lot of people clamour for it, because I think having 2 forwards means you're attacking play, look at what we can do when there's only Campbell up front. We can have Grzycki piling forward. We can have Bowen just as soon as he gets the ball, just running at goal. You know, like a 6-year-old playing school football. But it's great because it really gives the opposition something to worry about. I love that you know, giving Bowen that freedom to just say, yes, sate your hunger, just run at them, because he's very, very good at it. And even if he doesn't like get a shot off, he has a good tendency to draw a foul and draw a yellow card, as he did, you know, in the second half. What I would like to talk about is Henriksen's goal, because like the first time you sort of see it, sort of in real time, you think, oh, he's headed that, because he sort of stoops his head down and there's a pile of bodies. I think you just presume he's done it with his head, but you have to actually watch it back a couple of times to realise that's not what happened. His head was down because he was lifting his left leg, and he just sort of seemed to like flick it in, which is incredibly audacious. I mean, you talk about exploitative. It took advantage of what QPR gave us. They didn't put much in the way of marking on Henriksen. Granted, he's not got a reputation as being somebody who scores a lot of goals from set pieces or whatever. But it was just a beautiful little of impudence that also maybe highlights he's feeling confident. You know, maybe it's because he had a rainbow armband on. Maybe being captain is good, but there's a certain and even Henriksen recently said, doesn't it, that he feels like he's growing into the role, and I certainly thought we saw that.
He's catching the eye generally, isn't he, Henriksen? And he's had loads of stick since he joined the club, and some of it merited, and of course some of it not merited, because football fans of any club can go way over the top in their frustration at footballers who, for the most part, are trying their best. However, he's really caught the eye lately, I think, with his aggression, an aggression that he didn't used to have in his early days with City. And he is the captain. He may not be a natural captain. You know, James Lockwood on the match report said that he isn't going to be Ian Ashby, but he is proving effective with his own sort of brand of leadership, even if it isn't of the sort of the fist bump, swashbuckling type that you traditionally associate with captains, especially the sort of captains who also happen to operate as central midfielders. So it's time to start loving him, isn't it? A little bit.
It's time to start appreciating him. I think he's had a better season. I'm not instinctively a fan of his. I do think he's got a lot to do to be overall in credit during his City career, but the signs are good and the signs are improving, and like team itself, you can dwell. It's easy to dwell on what's gone by because I've just done it. But if you look at the trajectory of his performances and the team's performances, things are going in the right direction for him. And Liz is dead right. He wouldn't have tried that last season. He wouldn't have had the confidence. He wouldn't have had the nerve to do it. So he must be feeling himself as though he's in a good place.
It's easy to say, because it's correct that he has, on numerous occasions in his City career, played poorly. It's hard to say that he's ever hidden, and he isn't hiding now, is he?
No, I don't think I would ever level that at him.
And it's not something you can say about every City player during this bad couple of years that we've had. We've had players who genuinely have hidden when the goings got tough. And no matter what mistakes Henriksen makes, he doesn't seem to be the type of player who suddenly doesn't... I mean, his confidence levels are obviously up, judging by the type of goal that he scored on Saturday. But he's not hidden in general play, has he?
No, I wouldn't say so. I don't think you can ever criticise him for a lack of effort. I don't think that's a part of his game. Sometimes he's lacked technique, sometimes he's lacked confidence, sometimes he's perhaps not known what his role is on the pitch. But, you know, we talked last week about judging people on a body of work. Well, I'd agree with you, Andy. If you look at Henriksen's body of work, he probably is in debit rather than in credit. But if you break it down into, say, 3 chapters, then the current chapter is overwhelmingly positive, and he has got the chance to tip the scales of that overall body of work, I feel.
Other examples of players who've... I say other examples, maybe Henriksen isn't one of these yet, but just off the top of your head, any players who started really, really poorly for City but ended up as actually quite appreciated, maybe even heroic during their time with the clubs.
Damien
Delaney is a good example. Very slow starter for City, although he wasn't helped by playing out of position at left back in his early days. As soon as he slotted into central defender, it was completely different, wasn't it? Any others?
Ashby didn't have a stellar start, did he?
Ashby?
Yeah, that's fair. It was quite a slow start, and also signing players from Cambridge isn't normally what you associate with an assault from the 4th Division to the Premier League, did it? But no, he sure came good in the end.
Okay. Jared Bowen's first ever brace away from home. It's not the most extraordinary statistic in the world, but I get the feeling though that we need more of this from Bowen. Bowen is clearly a capable goal scorer, and I kind of feel, you've talked about this, about giving him that freedom up front. I'd like him to play as far forward as possible within a tight formation, because I think he is a natural, not quite a natural goal scorer, but certainly a capable goal scorer at this level, and we should be at least channeling some of the tactics around trying to get Jared Bowen into goal-scoring positions. And that hasn't happened necessarily enough this season, because he's been almost ever-present this season. He is one of the first names on the team sheet, but he could have had more goals.
Yeah, he could. I think there was a period earlier in the season where perhaps other teams found him out, and perhaps he didn't adjust accordingly. He didn't sort of like put a wrinkle in his game to give him something else. But he's certainly done that. He's certainly stuck at it. I like to, keep going back to the word exploitative, but I love the way he took advantage of some boneheaded defending for for the third goal, where they allowed him to sort of drift in between them, presuming he was going to be offside. Grzycki's ball was pretty good and he wasn't offside, and then once again he went at it. And even then, after having his initial shot saved, he had the hunger to react quickly and sort of poke it in the net. He's another one where, sometimes he'll have off days, but you can't really question his commitment to the cause and his sheer work rate. He's a joy to behold.
I think he is, if he can get back to where he was last season. He's a known quantity now, so replicating what he did last season is going to be harder. But there's been glimmers, haven't there, that he is getting back to his best. And it is interesting you say, Matt, that it's his first brace away from home. If you get a player who scores a brace, you've got a really good chance of winning that game with no one else doing anything. So it's that kind of contribution that you need, because if you go away and score twice to one player, something good's coming your way more than likely. And I thought his first goal was just brilliant. It suggests that he too was playing with confidence, because to drive a couple of defenders and shoot early, and the keeper got beat at his near post, and he'll probably not want to watch it too many times back, but I think he shot early, which is another hallmark of a player who feels like he can do good stuff. And it's that kind of thing that you love. I love watching him run from deep.
I'm really hoping that's a command from Adkins, because the problem that was writ large in the Forest game, but also was a little bit evident in the Norwich game, was an absolute reticence to shoot. And so if you've got somebody who, I hate the phrase, knows where the goal is, well, I know where the goal is. It doesn't make him any good. But, somebody who's prepared to sort of have a go and more often than not is going to put a shot on target, then why not just give him that licence and say, yeah, go for it. We aren't going to score goals not attempting it. And that was the thing that frustrated me about the Forest and Norwich games, was there were times where we looked tidy in possession, but just like a fear of shooting. And I'm hoping that what we saw on Saturday has come from the manager, because it's great that the players, are doing it, but you'd like to think the manager knows what he's doing enough to say, yeah, go on then today, just have a go for it.
I hope there's, if that is an instruction, I hope it's a suitably refined one, because you wouldn't want to give all of your players carte blanche to shoot as soon as they get within 30 yards of goal, would you? You would trust Bowen, for example, a lot more than you would trust Dan Batty for all of his other attributes. And there are certain players, I suppose Grzycki, he's going to shoot anyway, whether you tell him to or not. But
yet, when he plays the ball to Campbell or plays the ball to Bowen, normally better things happen than if he has a go himself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the end result is Grzycki ends up looking better for it than when he has a go himself, apart from occasionally when he takes superb set pieces.
Billy Whitehurst is a good example of somebody who started really slowly at City. He wasn't a footballer when he arrived at Hull City. That's how slowly he started, and ended up as a cult hero over two spells. A fairly obvious one on that shirt up there, Michael Turner. remember how appalling he was. Appalling. He was not just slow starter. He was appalling when he started.
And he had really bad hair when he first came. He was very floppy, wasn't he?
That's crucial. Thank you.
That Tuesday night at Colchester.
Yeah.
God almighty.
I mean, that was. You wondered whether he'd ever seen a football before, let alone kicked one with sufficient sort of quality and style and finesse in order to actually start getting paid for it. But of course, he turned into a genuine modern-day Hull City hero. So I'm sure there are others. People on Periscope will pop up with a few other examples of Hull City players who started very slowly, may have even been subject to the Boo Boys prior to becoming good, even excellent Hull City footballers. Anyway, we're at the dizzy heights of 19th now. Everybody except West Brom and Brentford have played 20 games this season. We've won 5, drawn 5, lost 10. We've still got a goal difference of -9. But we are level on points with Rotherham, and our goal difference is better. We're 2 clear of Reading, Millwall, who we play this weekend, of course, and Bolton, Ipswich, still a long way down. 1 win from 16th.
Should we count how many teams are beneath us?
It's
1,
great.
2, 3, 4, 5.
19th in the table.
Wow.
It's dizzy heights when you compare it to what we've been used to this season. I mean, it's a good time to do it because you've got a really busy programme coming up with Christmas and New Year. What is it, 3 games in 8 days or something like that, possibly more. But prior to the FA Cup third round tie, which we're going to find out about a little bit later on tonight in about 10-15 minutes, hopefully. So if City can now use this, what is it, 1 defeat in 6. So if City can now use this to put on another little tiny run to follow up the QPR game, Millwall, we can go there with a reasonable amount of confidence, having done so in a different part of London last weekend to a better side. Then maybe there'll be an element of health about Hull City in the Championship table by the time January comes round. And if it's Nigel Adkins who has to spend the money in January, whatever money there is, then maybe, just maybe, he might be given more of an opportunity to do so.
Well, we've got an opportunity, haven't we? Because we've got games coming up against teams who are not having brilliant seasons themselves. We've just had a hard run of games and done fantastically well. 11 points from 6 games is the kind of run that would get you pretty close to automatic promotion if you extended it over a full season. It's kicking on from that, isn't it? It's not letting this be the high point of the season or a flash in the pan kind of run. But if we can make it not just a good run in 6 games, but extend it to 10. We've got some winnable games coming up. If we can win a couple of them, then we're inching away from other sides. And at the moment, it's still so very tight that if we lose our next game, we could find ourselves back in the bottom 3. You want to kick on, don't you? You want to, when you're playing well, when things are going for you, they're not going to go for us all season. We know that. But if we can cash in while things are going well, then I think it's vital that we do that. I'm not saying we have to win at Millwall, but we've got 3 games against bottom half teams.
Is it not a 17-pointer?
Oh, at least, yeah.
73-pointer.
I mean, the problem is, of course, if we do lose to Millwall, then they will automatically go ahead of us, and then so suddenly we're at best 5th from bottom, and then whatever happens with Reading and Rotherham as well. And as you say, we could be back. I mean, we could technically even, I don't know who's playing each other elsewhere, but technically we could go 2nd bottom if we lose to Millwall because of it's still tight around us, but there is that 2-point gap. And there's a nice psychological side to that, isn't there? Just having that 2-point gap and that extra couple of places up the table. I mean, I'd like to think that the players have looked at the table over the weekend and thought, we're just starting to do something right, and maybe we're starting to do it at the right time as well.
Yeah, well, it was always enjoyable, even this season, whenever we could leave Ipswich behind, even if we were sort of gazing up at teams above us.
How bad must Ipswich be if we are 9 points ahead of them?
I'm going to go bad.
Incredibly.
Like really bad.
Phenomenally bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's not good, is it? 1 win from 20. It's disappointing.
You're quite right that phenomenally bad is not good. Well worked out.
Linguist.
Indeed. So, I mean, if you look at the rest of the table, I mean, a couple of wins takes you to mid-table at the moment. We always talk. It's starting to open up a bit at the top. So if you look at sort of Derby onwards, 34 to 40. Derby from 7th up to Norwich at the top. There's only 6 points there. Then there's a 3-point gap to Villa in 8th. So there is potential for City to start doing a little bit of climbing if we can keep this run going, and it's the biggest if going, isn't it? City trying to keep a run going. We talked about this prior to the international break, and then came back and absolutely shot ourselves in both feet against Nottingham Forest. So these sort of things can happen, but
it's the reason that typical City was coined, and why it became a hashtag.
Right. So it's Millwall this weekend. We've all been there before, although I think only you're going out of the three of us this weekend. One that you're going to enjoy thoroughly, I would have thought. Are you going to be called a Northern Manky at some point?
If that's the worst thing that happens to me all day, then I'll take that.
That
Safest ground in England.
It really is. You get off the tube station into a massive cage. It takes you all the way to your away tent.
I remember it, yeah. I mean, I've been there twice. Once in the press box. The only time I went in the away end was when we went there on Valentine's Day, 10 years ago, and Peter Taylor drew 1-1.
That was romantic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know. Well, it wasn't for you. It was for me because I didn't have you with me that night. I met you there. I think I stayed the night down there. Actually, anyway, I can't remember the details. I remember the 1-1 draw though, and I remember John Parkin scoring for us midway through the second half. The best pass that Keith Andrews ever made in his Hull City career that night. There weren't many, admittedly.
The only forward pass Keith Andrews ever made.
It was a great ball over the top, and Parkin put it away beautifully. But then David Livermore equalised within a minute, and then joined us the following summer. But I've not been to Millwall since then. But you're right, there is that passageway, isn't there, where you get off the train. Is it at Bermondsey? You get off the train at Bermondsey and just basically walk through a grill until you reach the away end. Nobody can get you, can they?
No, you couldn't get filled in if you tried.
And we know people who do get filled in at away games.
Take a point?
Yeah, oh yeah, unquestionably. I mean, you feel greedy after winning at QPR, don't you?
Or do you go for it? Is it worth chancing our arm a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you really don't want to lose that game, but they must have a bit of fear in them, having seen us just win a game. So why not? Why not just do exactly what we did to QPR to them?
The price for winning is enormous, isn't it? If we're rocking up on 23 points from 21 games, we're going to be on more than a game's worth of points safe of the bottom three.
Playoff form.
Better change your holiday plans. You might be in the playoffs at this round. Lies.
That was a massive lie.
FA Cup draw is due in about 5 minutes' time. They're just interviewing Matthew Hanlon on TV at the moment. It's their third round, so obviously they dig out anybody who was ever involved in an FA Cup shock in the third round at any time ever, and he scored the winning goal for Sutton United against Coventry back in 1989. And they've dug out footage of Bournemouth beating Manchester United in the mid-80s, and Havant and Waterlooville and Hereford United and all the usual.
Hereford United, famous cup. When did they once?
Indeed.
Oh,
we're number 18 in the third round draw. Now, I've taken the liberty here of putting together my list of potential ground ticks from this FA Cup draw. Because apart from going back 10 years, we've got nothing else to talk about now, because there's been no more off-field news. There's no takeovers or anything going on at the moment. We're number 18. My ground ticks.
Do you mean you've not been seduced by the romance of the cup? Stop actively devaluing the competition.
I love the FA Cup. I still do now. I just wish that the FA loved the FA Cup. That's the only thing I'd say.
Andy, what are the odds of me eating a mince pie live on air?
A mince pie?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really competitive. 2-1. It is somewhat in your own grasp after all.
So my ground ticks potentially Fleetwood, Wrexham or Newport. They've still got to play each other in a replay. Shrewsbury, who appointed Sam Ricketts as manager today. Solihull if they beat Blackpool in their replay. Woking, Barnet. I know that you two guys have been to Barnet before. It's one I've never been to. I've only ever seen Wimbledon in their Selhurst Park days. And only ever seen Oxford United in their Manor Ground days. So there are club ticks and ground ticks aplenty there. You've probably got one or two different ones there. You've probably been to more grounds than me, the pair of you. But is there anybody in particular of those potential ground ticks of yours that you particularly want?
Yes, I want Newport County.
Yeah, I want Newport as well.
Newport County. It's going to be a home game if it's Newport County, which they will then win, a la Crawley 3 or 4 years ago.
No, we don't get the chance to properly wear an away kit enough. So, City in black marmalising Newport, that would be wonderful.
Well, City in black marmalising QPR at the weekend.
Exactly. I tell you what, it's a beautiful kit, that black one. I'm a big fan of it. In fact, I thought it was a nice kit match-up overall. I quite like QPR's kit. And, I'm not a fan of shirt sponsors, but I kind of like theirs, where it's like a panda's eyes made out of the negative space of a crown. That's quite innovative. I like
didn't
it.
notice that.
Just back on the FA Cup. I mean, last season we were a poor side, but we still managed to get ourselves into the 5th round, and before we took an absolute shoeing, not unexpectedly, by Chelsea. I mean, where will Nigel Adkins thoughts be as far as the FA Cup's concerned, do you think?
It's an opportunity for him to utilise the full depth of his squad.
So pick the same 11 irrespective of whether he wants to or not. I suppose it depends on the draw that you get before you make a decision about how you're going to approach the FA Cup. If we get a banana skin sort of game against Barnet or Woking, then Nigel Adkins... Indeed. Yeah, sadly so. And Nigel Adkins is going to make sure he wins that, isn't he? Because it's not going to look good on his already rather dusty CV that he might be knocked out of the FA Cup by a non-league side. Which
more likely to chance the weaker side, I would have thought, against a lower league side.
Yeah, but remember how well that worked 20 years ago against Hensford. So
this might be the only chance Milinkovic gets ever again.
What? Because he'll be on loan at Barnet at the time.
Possible.
One thing I never understand when the third round of the draw comes up, and especially now, given that we've been in the Premier League and we've played everybody that there is to play, is when the cup draw comes around and people wish for Man United away. It's quite possibly the dullest draw that we could. We'll get beaten comfortably, paying £50 for the privilege. Why?
Comfortable seats, yeah.
Why would you not want to go to work in?
I think it depends on who you support and also whether your club desperately needs the cash or not as well. A lot of lower clubs will ask for Man United at home because
that's a good one, isn't it? You know, we don't want a load of cash because we know it's going to get trousered rather than immediately reinvested. So.
I would like to mention that Grimsby are in the third round. Now that would be an interesting third round tie, even though all of us have obviously been to Blundell Park before.
We've not actually played them that many times, have they?
We haven't played Grimsby.
To Blundell Park.
We last played Grimsby in the League Cup under Colin Appleton, 89-90 was the last time we played. Was it the League?
Yeah, we played in the Autoglass.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because I got elbowed in the face. Elbowed in the eyeball, celebrating a City goal, and so I had
we nearly got
a bit of a bug eye.
We nearly got filled in, didn't we, after the match?
Mainly because of my mouth.
No.
Yeah.
You didn't open your mouth and say something unwise, did you, Les?
Well, to be honest, they backed off. I think they clearly must have thought, Craig, he's got unnerving.
Did you have any hard-looking friends with you at the time?
No, they was all square.
You were there. You and Tony Dutton. There we are. No wonder they all backed off. But would we like Grimsby? I mean, it would be quite fun, wouldn't
it? The non-tick round possibilities, yeah, Grimsby would be... can you imagine what time Humberside Police, that'd be 9 a.m. on a Thursday kick-off kind of job.
Or maybe we'd do like the opposite of the Copa Libertadores and we'd play it in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, that would be a quite delicious draw.
And they'd enjoy it just as much as we would. You're right about that.
Final day for them, wouldn't it?
You're right. I mean, I just think about it from the local rivalry point of view, but you're right to think about the police. That they'll have a fit, won't they, if Hull City and Grimsby... It depends on where it's played as well. I think it would be more of an issue if it was played at Blundell Park rather than if it was played here, I would suggest.
Do you also remember that time when an advertising agency on behalf of Coca-Cola paid us £50 to walk across a dog-shit-strewn bridge next to Blundell Park? That was a bit bizarre.
Do you remember that they gave us that £50 as a single £50 note as well?
Yeah.
That was weird.
Indeed. I also enjoyed tormenting some of the locals. Do you remember that woman that came out and went, "Are you having a go at my family?" And yeah. So you're being paid £50 to abuse fish packers. Beautiful.
Yeah. So even when City are playing, you're pretty horrible, aren't you?
Yeah.
We should make the most of this, because if we do get relegated, we might not make it to the third round next season.
Oh yeah, but we're guaranteed a tick ground in the first round.
Not necessarily guaranteed. We'll probably end up with Scunthorpe.
I'll get Shepshire Dynamos or something like that away, couldn't we? Imagine. That'd make up for having to play in the LDV thing.
Did you go to Salisbury?
Yeah, Salisbury was mega.
How was that? Great third round ties of the past while we wait for the draw to start, because I've got Paul Ince and Rude Hullett talking at the moment.
Yeah, but they do have Millie Chip's velvet ball bag out. And
that's a beautiful euphemistic possibility.
And Howard Wilkinson's tumble dryer that the ball's going for.
So yeah, Salisbury was brilliant.
Yeah,
we went on bus, didn't we? And that's the one and only time I've ever seen up for sale anywhere a 750ml can of Foster's. I don't know quite why that's always stuck in my mind. But, that had been ordered off the Grass Bank as well.
It might have been full of Novichok.
Well, yeah, it could.
I don't think Novichok had been invented then. We were friends with the Russians back then. Possibly. But no, I loved every bit of that cup run. Then on to Luton, then on to Aston Villa. Yeah, it was theirs, apart from the frigging thriller at the Villa caps, which were designed solely to sort of identify anybody who was a part-time bell end.
Do you remember that I think City took how many 5, 7, 8,000 fans, but only one little portion of the away end was sat down. That's where the club had given the official supporters club, as it was then, their own tickets, and they all just sat there munging around because everyone stood up and singing and shouting.
The ball bag is being emptied.
Hayes away. Who went to Hayes?
Yes.
Didn't
Cup,
Theodore Whitmore
Rory
take half of the West Indies with him that day?
It was also Rory getting into trouble for feeling his goalkeeper's arse.
Yeah.
That was
Rory had been drinking with us that day, so it wasn't entirely.
Can tigers get served easily enough in the pub?
That was.
The draw started, by the way. We're just waiting for number 18. This could take a while. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll keep an eye on that. But let's talk about 10 years ago when City played Middlesbrough at home, December the 6th, 2008, and won by 2-1. And it was a game that was all about the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was a fairly workaday kind of game, as I remember.
We're out. We've got Millwall away. Would you believe it?
Oh my word!
So it's a repeat of this
Can we get
weekend.
6 points for that as well?
Oh, that's not a brilliant draw, is it? An old championship game, a side that we're actually going to play this weekend. And because the league game comes first, we can't use the phrase dress rehearsal. Unfortunately, for the cup tie, it would have to be the other way around.
I think it's only right that we take 3,000 fans and tear the place to fucking pieces.
Right, well,
that's probably what will happen.
That's a bit depressing.
That's a really, really, really terrible. Do you remember when we got drawn?
If we get Newport away, I may run across the bridge and run amok.
Insult people's families.
I mean, all right then. Well, might as well. Before we go back to the Middlesbrough game, we might as well talk about really depressing FA Cup third round draws of the past. Do you remember?
Almost all of them.
Wigan. I mean, we talk about Wigan. That's because we got them was it 3 out of 4 seasons, or was it 2 seasons in a row?
2 out of 3, I think. The Wigan home one was bleak. The Wigan away one was quite good. I think it was snowing that day, and there was only about 4,000 in there, which the newspapers made a big deal of because of the two clubs' relative good fortunes in the scheme of things. But it's a dog shit draw, that, isn't it?
It really is.
Really
It's dog
poor.
shit on crackers.
Oh God, it's depressing. That is really depressing. Mind you, I'll have to go and win it, and then get a decent draw in the 4th round instead. By which
Newport
time
in the 4th round?
Yeah. By which time Newport, Barnet, Woking, and probably Grimsby have all gone out. Lincoln City are going to Everton, which is a good day out for them. I can't believe I just used that phrase. I do beg your pardon. Right, Middlesbrough 10 years ago. So the last 10 minutes, and I don't remember an awful lot going on about the game before then. It was a. I mean, Middlesbrough, of course, ended up going down that season, even though they weren't obvious relegation candidates come December. They were in 12th place after the game, so they were obviously a mid-table side at the time. And then they scored through Tunchai with 11 minutes to go, and you would kind of expect City, because City hadn't won for a little while, even though we were still in 6th place, courtesy of 3 draws in a row, you kind of wouldn't have expected City to come back from that, would you?
Well, we had done that a couple of times that season. There was a few times where we'd come, most notably at Arsenal. But the other thing I want to say is that was a beautiful goal, wasn't it, Tunchai? I mean, the confidence to sort of flick that with the back of his foot that he did. Things I remember about that game, I remember Giovanni having a really good game. I thought he was pretty damn good. The equalising goal, because we equalised really quickly, didn't we, after their goal? And wasn't it a clearance? And Mendy had a shot and it hit the post and come back off the keeper.
Yeah, Ross Turnbull.
Yeah. But I think one thing you have to say is Middlesbrough were hard done by, weren't they?
They were.
Because for one, Giovanni was quite a bit offside. I don't think there was a great deal of contact or any foul on Giovanni. I don't think Giovanni took a dive, but it just didn't look like a foul. So I think they had the opportunity to be doubly aggrieved.
Grimsby are going to Crystal Palace, so we won't get them in the 4th round if we do go through, because you can't imagine Grimsby winning there. Mendy had a shot. Mendy had come on as a sub. He had a good impact. I mean, he's kept his place in the side the following week because we went to Liverpool, and I'm looking forward to remembering that one next week on the podcast. But he came on as a sub on the hour, double sub, Mendy and Kuzan on, and Bambi and Marnie off. And Middlesbrough just switched off. It's as if they thought they'd won it. It was a lovely goal they'd scored, but maybe they thought there was less time to go than there actually was. There was still 10 minutes left, and for City to score, albeit with an element of good fortune in the way that they did, for Mendy to be in the box and have a clear shot at the near post, for it to hit the post and hit the goalkeeper and go in, I can't imagine that the Middlesbrough players covered themselves in glory in allowing any of that to happen.
No, it was all weirdly unnecessary. You would assume that if you 1-0 up away to us with 10 minutes left, that should do it. Even though we had obviously had a brilliant start, they'll have been gutted with that. They were very much the architects of their own downfall. Whatever fortune City enjoyed, I just thought that their heads completely went when we equalised, and in a way you never really think that Premier League football clubs would do. You would think that a club with a reasonable recent Premier League pedigree would just not react in that kind of hysterical manner, but they did.
That's probably why they went down.
Probably is, yeah. But City cashed in, didn't they? And it looked as though all was well again.
The triple whammy of our winning goal. Giovanni was offside in the build-up to it. David Wheater was sent off for the foul, and Marlon King scored the penalty. That's seriously a bad luck threefold for Middlesbrough, isn't
Probably
it?
Hull City's contribution to the we need television replays debate, wasn't it? Maybe VAR was decided on the back of that. It wasn't, because it was nearly 10 years later.
Solihull are going to get Arsenal if they win the replay against Blackpool, which they probably won't now. Blackpool are suddenly going to be interested in that replay against Solihull in a way that they might not have been before.
I hope the Blackpool fans don't turn up for that.
Arsenal going to Solihull. Solihull's a posh area of Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's the Kirk Eller of Birmingham. No, it is. It's the posh area. It's the Kirk Eller of Birmingham.
Is it really?
It is. Yeah. Did you not know
I didn't
that?
know it was the posh area.
Yeah. Frank Skinner said that it is the sort of place where they keep a sheet of newspaper under the cuckoo clock. So there you go.
What?
I
What the hell
know.
does that mean?
That's what he says about Solihull.
Why did he say it?
Because he says it's the posh area of Birmingham.
Why did they do that?
What?
Oh,
So
what's
they
the
think
metaphor?
a cuckoo's an electronic cuckoo's going to shit it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's foolish. That's the simple area of Birmingham.
Yeah, he's not thought that through at all, has he?
Would you like to tell the award-winning comedian and multimillionaire?
We've won awards as well.
Yeah, and good luck to whoever's
Yeah.
getting hammered on the free bat.
And the poor sod who's me, who's the designated driver to get them all home afterwards. Yeah, somebody's going to win the 2018 Football Supporters Federation Club Podcast of the Year towards tonight. And it isn't going to be us because we didn't get nominated this time around, but we wish I think it's a quintet, isn't it? I think there's 5 of them. We wish all 5 candidates well and hope they enjoy their year of glory. Yes, that we've enjoyed. So we beat Middlesbrough 2-1, and Marlon King famously went out in London for a night out to celebrate afterwards, didn't they?
And that was the end of that.
And that was the end of that. And, events that occurred afterwards, and obviously we're not going to make light of them. Events that occurred afterwards meant that we never saw him play for City. We didn't see him play for City again once these events came to light. Of course, he had an important role to play against Liverpool the following week, as we'll talk about next week. And of course, the irony is that he ended up at Middlesbrough later that
That's
season.
coincidence, Matthew.
Is that not irony?
No.
Okay, he ended up at Middlesbrough later in the season. Actually, I think scored against us, didn't
I think he might have done, yeah.
and then gave us all a volley at the end of the game. I remember people around us shouting words to the effect of "sort your life out, King," but not necessarily exactly those words. There might have been 1 or 2 extra.
I think he might have had to have pawned his watch at that point.
He may well have done. The other thing to talk about, because we need to talk about it now, because City at this stage had won 7 games out of 16. We were still 6th in the table on 26 points. There were 22 games left, and we won 1.
It's interesting because I think we ended the Saturday 5th, but I think results on the Sunday slipped us down to 6th. So it's fascinating, isn't it? Because when you sort of remember that season, in your mind you're thinking, oh, this precipitous drop's coming, and you almost make it earlier in your mind, or maybe that's just me, but it's amazing that we got to this deep into sort of December before the real bad stuff happened. We were still Europa League entrants at this point. I mean, this was what essentially got us into the Asia Trophy, wasn't it? Our position at this point of the season, because I think the Premier League thought, well, we're not letting anybody in it if they've got the possibility of relegation, and surely Hull City can't be relegated now. Well, give it a damn good go.
Yeah, looking at the league table and the teams who did go to China, we were joined there by Tottenham and West Ham, who were both 4th and 6th bottom respectively. So we were the bankers for the Asia Trophy.
We were the star attraction, were we?
I wouldn't go that far,
No.
although we did take more fans than West Ham and Tottenham put together. So that's the ultimate lower league moral victory, isn't it?
It would appear so, yeah. But the fact that we were, obviously we didn't know this at the time, but to get a win after 3 draws in a row, so we're still going on a run of 4 unbeaten. And of course, we'd go on to play Liverpool and didn't lose that game. We started to lose regularly from Christmas onwards. But none of us could have even thought, even though we knew a bad run was coming, because it was bound to happen, it wasn't going to last forever, but none of us could possibly have thought we were only going to win 1 more game in the Premier League for the rest of the season.
No, I didn't think so. You know, just thinking this FA Cup draw is nowhere near as good as the one that was at the Deep, where behind Steve Bruce you could see my bearded face and my eyes staring into your soul in stunning HD.
And that made it a good thing.
So I'm told.
Traumatise all the viewers waiting for their team to
BAFTA
come out the draw.
nominated that footage.
BAFTA nominated? Right, okay.
Mm.
Did you think we'd go so long without a win again?
No, I didn't, because we'd started so well, and when things are going well, you never really think that they're going to go bad. And I suppose the opposite is true. When things are going badly, you don't think you'll ever win a game of football in the history of the universe to come, because you just can't really switch your mindset like that. But if someone had said at that point you'll only win one more game, and you said, "Oh, we'll get relegated then," because that would that just wouldn't be enough points, would it? We had 26 by that stage from 16. But you know you're still at least another dozen points from safety, and one win isn't going to get you near enough to those. But I do remember that after this game, when we beat Middlesbrough, City were 10-1 with the bookies to get relegated.
Crikey. Did you have money on that?
No. No, I didn't.
You think about, I mean, we'll talk about them as they come along chronologically, of course, but you think about one or two of the results that we did still get between the two wins against Middlesbrough and Fulham. Fulham was in March, wasn't it? I mean, we still were going to go on and get a point at Liverpool and a point at Chelsea, which are points that, even if we'd been on a reasonable winning run, we would probably not have got. Yeah. It's really strange that we got a couple of really strong away points against some of the biggest sides, a couple of the biggest sides. I mean, the current top two, if we look at the week of 2008 that we're talking about now. It was, I mean, even in the Premier League, I mean, we're talking about 10 years ago, but even in the Premier League, there was still an element of unpredictability, wasn't there? And we've made it unpredictable. We've made the whole division unpredictable.
Yeah, a lot of teams have come and done something similar to us since then, but I think we were the biggest surprise to come from the Championship at the time, and we should have been written off, shouldn't we? Look at West Brom, who looked so much better than us when we both went, oh, they're bottom of the league at this stage.
And stayed there.
And struggled in a way that they wouldn't have expected to do. I thought they'd do well, and we've got double their points already at this stage of the season. It was an amazing start, and like you say, it just limps on for a little bit longer, I think, that start with the next couple of games.
You're going to drive us to Millwall in the Cup?
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Of course you are.
Cheers, Matt.